The tactical battle between the All Blacks and the Springboks has always been one of rugby's greatest spectacles, but this time the conversation has taken on a fascinating new dimension after Sir Steve Hansen shared his thoughts on how New Zealand can finally unlock South Africa's famous Blitz defence. His analysis was not about brute force or trying to overpower the reigning world champions. Instead, it focused on timing, precision, composure, and the incredible playmaking talent that now exists throughout the All Blacks lineup. It is a challenge that has frustrated many of the world's best attacking teams over recent years, yet according to Hansen, the solution may already be sitting inside New Zealand's squad. If the execution is accurate enough, and if every decision is made in a split second with complete confidence, then even one of the most feared defensive systems in international rugby can begin to crack. The Springboks have spent years building a defensive identity that has become one of the defining features of modern rugby. Ever since Rassie Erasmus transformed South African rugby in 2018, the defensive system has evolved into something opponents know is coming but still struggle to stop. Much of that success has been credited to former defense coach Jacques Nienaber, whose aggressive philosophy demanded total commitment from every player on the field. Instead of waiting for attackers to build momentum, the defenders launch forward almost immediately after the ball leaves the ruck, reducing space, increasing pressure, and forcing mistakes before attacking moves have time to develop. Even after Nienaber departed following South Africa's successful Rugby World Cup campaign, new defense coach Gerry Flannery has maintained many of the same principles while introducing his own refinements. The identity has remained unmistakably South African, relentless, fearless, and built on trust between every defender. For many teams, facing this defensive line feels like trying to solve a puzzle that changes shape every few seconds. The pressure arrives so quickly that even experienced international players can panic. Passes become rushed, support runners hesitate, and attacking patterns suddenly lose their rhythm. That is exactly what the Springboks want. They thrive on forcing uncertainty because uncertainty often leads to turnovers, intercept opportunities, or dominant tackles that completely change the momentum of a match. Over the last several seasons, this defensive philosophy has played a major role in South Africa's success against some of the strongest attacking sides in world rugby. However, Sir Steve Hansen believes there is another way of looking at the problem. Instead of focusing on how dangerous the defense is, he encourages players to recognize where opportunities naturally appear within such an aggressive system. Every defensive structure has strengths, but every structure also creates vulnerabilities. When defenders race forward together, they inevitably leave areas behind them that can be attacked if the timing and execution are almost perfect. According to Hansen, that is exactly where the All Blacks must concentrate their efforts. One player received particular attention during his tactical breakdown, and that player was Jesse Kriel. Widely regarded as one of the finest defensive centers in world rugby, Kriel is much more than an outstanding tackler. Within South Africa's system, he often acts as the crucial decision-maker who determines exactly when the defensive line accelerates and how aggressively it attacks the opposition's passing channels. Hansen described him as the hinge player, a term that perfectly captures how important his positioning can be. If attackers fail to beat Kriel, the rest of the defensive line usually closes around them almost instantly. But if the attacking side can move the ball beyond him with accurate passing and intelligent support lines, suddenly the entire defensive structure begins to stretch in uncomfortable ways. That observation may sound simple, but executing it under international pressure is another matter entirely. Players have only fractions of a second to read the defense, judge their spacing, and deliver accurate passes while defenders are charging toward them at full speed. One small hesitation can destroy the opportunity. A pass delivered too early allows defenders to drift across. A pass delivered too late can end in a crushing tackle or an interception. Success depends on perfect synchronization between every player involved in the movement. Fortunately for New Zealand supporters, the current All Black squad possesses an unusual number of natural playmakers capable of making those split-second decisions. Modern rugby increasingly values players who can pass, kick, offload, and change direction without sacrificing speed, and New Zealand appears to have assembled exactly that kind of backline. Rather than relying on one creative player to unlock defensive systems, they now have multiple athletes capable of reading situations independently. At scrum half, Cam Roigard has continued to impress with his quick service and willingness to challenge defenders around the breakdown. His speed creates uncertainty because defenders never know whether he will pass immediately, run himself, or hold the ball just long enough to manipulate the defensive line. Those subtle decisions can have enormous consequences against an aggressive defense like South Africa's. Every extra fraction of a second changes defensive spacing, creating possibilities that simply do not exist against slower-moving attacks. Alongside him, Ruben Love offers another layer of unpredictability. Comfortable handling the ball under pressure, he has demonstrated an ability to spot opportunities that many players might overlook. His vision allows him to recognize defensive mismatches quickly, while his passing range gives teammates more options than traditional attacking structures sometimes provide. Against the Springboks, that creativity could prove invaluable because predictable attacks rarely succeed against such disciplined defenders. Then there is Jordie Barrett, whose versatility has become one of New Zealand's greatest strengths. Whether operating in midfield or from deeper positions, Barrett combines physicality with outstanding distribution skills. Defenders cannot simply expect him to crash into contact because he is equally capable of producing a perfectly timed pass moments before being tackled. Those qualities force defenders to hesitate ever so slightly, and against elite international teams, even the smallest hesitation can create valuable attacking space. Few players in world rugby possess the attacking instincts of Damian McKenzie. Throughout his career, he has developed a reputation for seeing possibilities that others cannot. His acceleration, footwork, and confidence with ball in hand make him one of the most dangerous broken field runners in the game. Yet perhaps his greatest strength lies in his decision-making. He constantly evaluates defensive positioning while remaining calm enough to choose the correct option. Against South Africa's Blitz defense, that calmness may become one of the All Blacks' most valuable weapons. Completing this remarkable collection of attacking talent is Will Jordan, whose finishing ability has already established him among rugby's elite backs. While many supporters admire his try-scoring record, experienced coaches often praise another quality just as highly, his positioning. Jordan has an exceptional understanding of where attacking opportunities are likely to emerge before they become obvious to everyone else. By anticipating defensive movements rather than merely reacting to them, he frequently arrives in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. That instinct could prove decisive if New Zealand manages to expose even the smallest weakness within South Africa's defensive line. Together, these players represent something that has excited coaches and supporters alike. Rather than relying on individual brilliance alone, the All Blacks increasingly appear capable of creating attacking sequences where every player contributes as both a distributor and a running threat. That flexibility makes defensive planning significantly more difficult because opponents cannot easily predict where the decisive pass will originate. Recent performances have hinted at this evolution. The All Blacks have shown greater willingness to move the ball across the width of the field while maintaining support runners close enough to continue attacks through quick offloads. Instead of forcing miracle plays, they have demonstrated patience, trusting that repeated accurate passes will eventually stretch even the strongest defensive systems. It is precisely the kind of rugby that Sir Steve Hansen believes can trouble South Africa if executed consistently. Of course, recognizing a tactical opportunity and exploiting it during an 80-minute test match are two completely different challenges. The Springboks remain one of the most physically dominant teams in world rugby. Their forwards relentlessly contest collisions, their set piece provides a reliable platform, and their defensive commitment rarely drops regardless of the scoreline. Any attacking team hoping to defeat them must sustain accuracy under immense physical and psychological pressure. That is why Hansen's comments have attracted so much attention. He is not suggesting that beating South Africa will be easy. Instead, he is identifying a pathway that depends on discipline, trust, and precise execution rather than attempting to overpower one of rugby's toughest defensive units. As anticipation continues to build, supporters from both nations recognize that this contest may ultimately be decided not by spectacular individual moments but by tiny margins repeated over dozens of phases. One perfectly timed pass, one intelligent support line, or one split-second defensive decision could completely alter the outcome. That is what makes clashes between the All Blacks and the Springboks so compelling. They are never simply contests of strength against strength. They are battles of ideas, preparation, courage, and execution, where every detail matters and every opportunity must be earned. If Sir Steve Hansen's assessment proves correct, rugby fans may soon witness another fascinating tactical chapter in one of the sport's greatest rivalries.